Hello. Hello,
Hey!
everybody. Hello, Thor. Hello, welcome to our Dungeon Master Deep Dive for D&D in a Castle. I am Tara Rout, founder of D&D in a Castle, and I'm meeting with Thor today. Welcome. Excited to
Thank
talk about D&D.
Yes, thank you. Always excited to be here and do these things and be at the castle. It's always so fun.
Yeah, so much fun. Well, yeah, I know that you and many of our other dungeon masters are in the LA area, and I
Yes.
know we were just mentioning you're sort of outside of the affected zones in
Yes.
LA at the moment,
Yes,
and
we are.
I was kind of thinking, well, wouldn't it be nice distraction to just talk about D&D for a bit when all the news has been about other things? So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I'm one of the lucky ones there. I'm not in an exposed area, so I'm okay.
Yeah,
But it's been very
that's
nice.
great.
Everyone's been reaching out and worried, and I try to draw a map, and I'm like, no, I'm here, and then but there's fires everywhere, so that doesn't
Yeah,
help at all.
yeah.
Because the scale, like the LA is so big, right? So the scale doesn't
Mhm,
really translate.
mhm.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
but I'm glad you're safe and doing all right.
yeah,
Yeah, and everybody seems to be supporting each other down there, so that's really lovely to see in the community.
yeah,
So let's talk about D&D,
yeah.
which is what we are here for. I know we met maybe in the summer when we were talking about the castle that you did in October, November at D&D in a Castle in the fall, and ran your custom campaign Draugir. I don't know if I'm saying
Yes.
that right. I think I
I
am.
mean,
Close
it's
enough.
yes, that is close enough. I think that's
Okay,
good.
we'll go with that. Yeah, so you got to run it then, and you are bringing it back again in the summer in
I am.
July, back to the UK. And so I want to hear about how it went when you ran it last time. You ran it in sort of two different formats. For those who don't know, you ran it two times back to back. Once for in a sort of regular format, which is 2 4-hour sessions a day for 3 days, and the other was in hardcore mode, which you ran for the first time as well, which is 12 hours a day for 3 days. And I'd love to hear how both of those went and what the difference was like for the campaign in those two formats.
Well, hardcore is aptly named. No, it was a cool challenge because I had to write. It was a whole new adventure, so of course I'm like, oh, is it gonna be any good at all? Of course. But so it was new material for me, and I had to write it in, like you said, one for a 36-hour campaign, or 38 really, and then one for like a 26-hour. So it was interesting to see like how can I shift this around and what can I cut in the shorter version and still make it feel like it's the whole complete story, et cetera, et cetera. So those were some fun challenges, but it worked out. Nobody had any idea that they were missing a full third of the adventure. But I mean, it's D&D, right? So it's easy to get distracted with tangents here and there, and add a sort of a, I guess I would call it a mini boss that you sort of meet instead of just going, oh, blah blah blah, let's figure it out, boom, let's go end the thing. It's you figure it out, you go do the thing, figure it out even some more, and finally then end it. So it was interesting, and it went really well. I was
That's
a
great.
little proud of myself, and felt like I could maybe hang with the other legends at D&D in a
Aw.
castle just a little that last time.
So for those who we did talk in our last deep dive about the campaign itself, about the
Right.
story, and about the background a little bit. So we won't go too deeply into that, but just
Sure.
so people have a reference point if they haven't seen that interview, can you tell us just a summary of what the campaign is about and what it is?
Yeah, well, when we talked last time, I wasn't entirely sure that what shape it would take, but what it is now is we start off with sort of the childhood trauma of living the actual backstory of your character instead of like, oh my god, I was an orphan, like 80% of every D&D character. We're like, but how though did that happen? You know?
I had people, I'm going to
Yeah.
interrupt you because I had people who came to me and was like, Thor is my new favorite DM because he made me cry in the prologue. He made me cry at session 0. That is an effective
That was
dungeon master. I'm just
it
going to say.
was it was really fun that it worked out that way, and it's like, I mean, I'm not sure if it was the story affecting the players as much as it was. The story affects me a lot because it's based on something I wrote many years ago. So when I go through that prologue, I am like, and then he did, you
You
know.
break
So
yourself.
it's,
That's a
I'm
new level.
breaking constantly, and I feel there's definitely like a transference, right? Like if someone else is crying,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're likely to cry. So part of it was the story. 80% of it is just me barely being able to get a word out because I'm invested in these characters really on a level that I wasn't expecting because these are characters I've written, previously in ways to try to affect myself because obviously you want to write something that you have
Mhm.
strong feelings
Yeah.
about. But yeah, so we really don't let you get away with the whole I'm an orphan and then left home and blah blah blah. We really go into the why, like what happened there. And then we do a time skip and we're like, all right, well now you've sort of grown up and now you have a chance to sort of undo or not undo, but you have a chance to avenge, let's say, some of the
Mhm.
wrong
Mhm.
of your past, which hopefully by now you feel pretty strongly about, as opposed to this guy I wrote about my backstory did a thing. It's like it's these people. So that's cool. And then the rest of the adventure is a strong, let's call it 4/5 is actual, more like the D&D you're used to, where you have all your abilities and you're a proper character, or an adventurer, let's say.
And it's a
So
little bit of a Viking story-ish,
it's
yes?
definitely
Kind of?
it's yes. I've added my northern lights, and this is the little
I
fishing
see.
village of Leirvik, where it all begins. It's set in sort of a Norse universe. I mean, I'll make almost everything I do Forgotten Realms adjacent, just so you have some
Mhm.
people who play a lot have reference points that they are familiar with and sort of what to expect a little to a certain extent, and then subvert all of those. But
Right.
still, but yeah, so it's a little bit of a Norse story. People have accents, and we're in what would you could easily have been in Norway, right? In somewhere around the 9th century. Um, 8th century to be exact, or early 9th century. So
Get
yeah,
our
it's
Viking
fun.
history accurate. There's much to know. Anyway.
Yeah, no, there's actually some parallels, some fun historical fiction mixed in with the fantasy that ends up being a couple of fun aha moments for people. But yeah, so that's that, and we end up traveling. We're on a ship at some point, and we deal with some things at sea, and we deal with some things across the ocean, et cetera, like Vikings would. Although we're not, Vikings wouldn't call themselves the Vikings, so it's not like, oh my God, we're Vikings like every TV show.
Right.
You're just, the people of that area at that time.
Right.
But with a heavy fantasy element in this case.
Mhm.
Obviously you're dealing with dragons and druids and forest creatures, etc. So yeah, that's kind of the general gist of it. So that's what to
Cool.
expect, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're coming back. For those who don't know, on the screen there should be a QR code that can direct you to find out more information. But you're coming back in July of this coming year to run this campaign. That event is very nearly sold out. I think there
Nice.
were three tickets left to that whole event. So just heads up to anybody
That
who's watching this
entire
thinking
event has 3
the
tickets
entire
left?
event has 3 tickets left. So if
Yay! I'm
if
glad
you're
to hear
planning
it.
to come and you want to play with Thor, you should get in now because it is still many months away, and those tickets will go. So
Right.
this is your chance. If this sounds like fun, and I even think it sounds like fun. So I think you're going to have a great time. And the people who played at Thor's Table in the fall playing this very campaign had a great time and had wonderful things to say about it and about Thor. And I want to know if you're planning anything that you took away from the last time that you did it that you will be bringing this time based on that experience of having run
You
it before.
I think as a DM, you're always refining the material a little bit. Like the characters change a little, or people do interesting things that add color to the world, and now that's going to be included in the next thing.
Mhm.
So there's a couple of specifics like that I wouldn't go into detail about, but absolutely, every time it's a slightly new thing, and you wouldn't be exactly the same. But yeah, how many people are repeats at this castle in the summer? Not for me
There won't
personally,
be,
but
yeah, there will be none that are repeats for you.
okay.
Um, yeah,
Well, hopefully not, because they've run the campaign.
and because they run this game.
I
So
mean, what I find so
overall,
fascinating about
it,
D&D Castle is so
mhm,
fascinating that so many people just do it again and again and
Yeah, it
again. You
is.
know,
They
yeah,
come again and again, and they even come back for the same dungeon masters again and again because they like get in that vibe, and they're like, I just want to have the exact same experience, but again, I just want
yeah,
to go back and do it all again.
yeah. I
So we do get that. We get kind of, the dungeon master loyalty where they're like, we want to book with this dungeon master, or they come as a couple, and then the next time they said, we're going to bring all our friends, and then we're going to book this whole table out, and we're all going to come together. That
and
happens too.
then we're gonna get married. You
And then we're going to get married in the
know.
middle of the campaign or just before or just
Those,
after. That
yeah.
has definitely happened. That's definitely happened.
Those are the DM legends, though. Like those are the people who have this the fan base that are just super into what they have to offer, which is just very impressive and so cool to see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So if anybody's watching and you have questions or comments, feel free to throw them up in the chat there, and we'll try and get to them. As we have talked a fair bit about this campaign before with Thor, I'd love to hear some DM tips from Thor, who is our DM to the stars, and some very people who could have anybody they wanted run their game often choose to have Thor run their game. So what if you were talking to somebody who was just starting out as a dungeon master? What would be your top piece of advice for dungeon mastering?
I think one of the key things to remember is that there isn't a strict script, right? Like you're not supposed to cling to whatever, especially if you're new and you've read the adventure or you made up this thing in your mind, you expect it to go a certain way. It will not go that certain way. And you don't get flustered or frustrated or lose your sort of sense of the place and time and everything. You have to just kind of go with the flow. It's collaborative storytelling after all. So the players' input and the directions they take things and go with it is almost just as important. I would say equally important that as what you do as a dungeon master and sort of what story that you bring. Because then as soon as you tell it to them, it's now in their hands. Like it's a yes and a situation where you present the scenario and then the scenario is now theirs to mess with as they wish. So be open to change and really encourage and the players to contribute to the story in whatever way their character sees fit. So that's the big one, I think, between the big difference between like seasoned D&D and D&D players for that matter. Like if you are a new D&D player, pick up what the dungeon master is putting down, right? Like if
Mhm.
seems to want you to do these things, you'll likely have a better experience if you do somewhat those things, right? Rather than force some other off kilter thing. Like this takes a lot of prep work and stuff. So if you do the thing that he probably has more or less planned to do, I'm not forcing you to
Right.
go down this rail, but if you do that, you're gonna have a better experience because that's the prepped stuff, right? Like that's the stuff
Mm.
the story he wants to tell, so he's engaged, the story he's ready to tell, it's all that sort of stuff. So it's again, we're collaborating. It will go off. You follow the tangents. It's funny or great or creates cool moments. But we're all collaborating and we're all helping each other tell the story. We're not being
Yeah.
contrarians or
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And when you come to D&D in a castle, you're dungeon mastering for people you don't know, people
yeah,
who don't know each other.
yep.
Any tips, suggestions, thoughts around that? And you don't have months, you have it, in a way it ramps up quickly because it's such an intense time. It's also
Yeah.
short. So any thoughts around that? Have you done this a few times?
Yeah, you become very good friends sort of very fast in terms of because you play so much, right? But you also have to remember if you're playing 2 or 3 times a day, like that's normally that would take several weeks, if not months, in real life,
Mhm.
right? So you really get to compact the play space and get to know each other in that on that level really well, really quickly, and it's really unique and cool. But I think there's some social awareness involved there. Although I don't think that social awareness is necessarily like the brand of our players. Like you don't have to be a social butterfly or very socially aware or really good at like that doesn't actually matter that much. What seems to matter more to me or to the success of D&D and Castle as an experience for you is just your passion for the game. Like do you like you really enjoy playing and you want to play and have a great time, and then with everyone at the Indian Castle shares that with you. I
Mhm.
guarantee it. Like that's why they're there.
That's why they're
So
there. Mhm.
soon as you tap into that, everyone's super
Yeah.
on board, right? Like it's
Yeah.
great. It's not like, okay, do we want to, should we push through and play till like one more hour till we get to this natural stopping point, or how are we feeling? Not once, right? Have anyone said, yeah, let's just, yeah, it's been a lot today, let's just call it.
No one
Everyone's like,
ever wants to
no,
quit.
we're going, as hard as you are able, Dungeon Master. We will do the thing.
It's true.
Um,
And what you said is
yeah,
really significant too about, that what we sort of recognize as the magic is that the social interaction is replaced with game interaction. And so for me, as an extroverted introvert or whatever, those initial social interactions, they're stressful, and they're stressful for a lot of people. That's quite common. And so we just take that and replace it with game, so it's got a structure, and then you're in the game and you all have a common purpose, and it takes away a lot of that awkwardness and a lot of that stress, and then that gets facilitated through the very act of the gameplay that you're there for. So um, I think that's a
absolutely.
really significant part of the
Yeah, no
experience, and
matter.
why it enables people to bond so quickly.
Yeah,
It's
and
like
no
getting
matter
a
where in the
connection.
world you're from, when you've come to D&D in a Castle, you already have a lot of things in common.
Yeah.
So
No, that's very true.
you immediately bond on those things, and you, like you said, and that's an interesting point, like you spend most of your time together at D&D in a Castle actually in game.
Yeah.
Likely. So now the you that you're kind of presenting, whether or not you intended to, is going to be the character, right? Like not
Mhm.
that you are constantly in a character voice or whatever, but you're thinking and reacting, and sort of in a way being your character. So you're kind of this, you kind of get to just be this I idealized or fantastical version of yourself, and that's kind of how people know you now, and that's cool. I've seen that surprise a lot of people, because
Mm.
suddenly they
Mhm.
found themselves in a position, socially speaking, even off game, right? Like where they're that's kind of how people are treating them. But like, yeah, but I'm not a paladin Goliath in real life. I don't.
I'm an
But I've
accountant.
been acting that for the last 8 hours we spent together. I've been that guy, right? So now there's a certain fun social new
Yeah.
context there for people where like, okay, well now he would definitely be that guy, and you would never normally be that guy. But that's how they know you now, and that's a fun,
Yeah. It's a great
it's a fun
exploration
dynamic.
of them.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
In the fall, you ran hardcore mode, as we mentioned.
yeah.
Love to hear about what having done it now, being on the other side. How do you see hardcore mode? How would you describe it to people, and who do you think it's for? Who do you think would
Uh,
enjoy that particular game format?
I was a little worried going in. Like I was happy to do it. I am one of, I was gonna say few. There's probably not a few, but I for sure will easily game for 12, 15 hours a day. That's never been a problem for me. I've done it plenty. I still do it plenty in my adult life. Like that's not a problem. Can you keep players' attention for that long? Can they stay interested and
Mhm.
motivated and on on board for that long? And yeah, sure they can. Like they, just like me, if you're someone who signs up for hardcore mode, you're the guy who would love to play a 12-hour giant board game session, or is kind of mad that the last time you had the whole weekend with your buddies as a sleepover playing D&D was 30 years ago. You wish that happened more often, or at least once a year, right? And at D&D Castle, it does. That's that. But everyone is so excited to do that, and I think it was we ended up playing, like, yeah, like I said earlier, I'm supposed to write 36 to 37 sort of hours of content, and we're playing 12 hours a day, and we ended up playing 42 hours. Like we took extra time to play and less time to sleep and less time to do other things, because we were so into it, right? And this was everyone. Um, so it was easier than I thought it would be, to keep
All the
everyone
time.
engaged. To fill
Hmm.
well, filling the time is not hard for me, but the keeping it engaging and fun and interesting. Like we had to cut stuff short. Like at 42
Yeah.
hours, we have to be like, okay, now you guys have to take a bus in the morning. Like we have to.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to fast forward some of these last things to sort of get to a satisfying end. Which, of course, next time I run it, it will be a slightly better timed. But it was a good surprise that I had too much content, if in fact we did all these things, rather than too little. But no, so I loved hardcore mode. I thought it was really cool. I thought it was it's really the not just hardcore because you're a badass player. It's hardcore of the idea of D&D in a castle. Like you're
Yeah.
here to just disappear from real
Yeah.
life
We
and
don't
just
see anybody from hardcore mode. They're like gone.
you don't see anyone there really, but that's not. I mean, you do. It's not that much of a
You do.
problem because you're so engrossed. But the point is, time and space just cease to exist. You don't know what day it is. You don't. You barely. Only reason you know what time it is because there's dinner and breakfast, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it's a magical sort of you're in this. And gamers know what this is, but like people talk about a flow state when you're at work and you're being super effective. You're just in that game flow space all day, and it's not a problem at all. And then you eat, sleep, and roll dice, repeat, right? Like it's this. It is that magical sort of space of where that's all you're doing and all you're thinking about and all your worries just melt away.
Did you notice any differences in the players from, the type of players or any kind of patterns that were a little different between the hardcore mode players compared to, say, the players you've
I
gamed for before?
surprisingly not so much.
Hmm.
But I mean, the the quality of the players in terms of like how good are they or how excited are they? Maybe you dial it up from like a 9.5 to a 10, right? If they're the hardcore players, like they're a little extra into this being the magical thing that you want it to be. And they're usually kind of experienced. Although at my table we had definitely had a person who wasn't very experienced with D&D, who was just like, fuck it, let's go do hardcore mode.
Go
and
big or
and
go
and
home, right?
she crushed. Yeah, like she was amazing. Like she was great. She was probably one of everyone around that table's favorite person, like character. Or no problem staying focused, being on, yeah, and doing the thing. So it was great. And at the same time, I keep saying focused and you're in it and blah blah blah. Like it's not mega serious, and there's snacks and there's breaks whenever you want them or whatever. But like the point is everyone's interested the whole time,
Right.
and part of the story. No one's checking their phone or I'm
Yeah.
wanting to leave early. Like that's you. Part of that though is you have other things to worry about. Like normally when you play D&D, you got to wake up tomorrow and go to work.
Yeah.
So like how soon should we call it at 11:30 or should we go to 2:30? If it's Saturday, you're gonna go to 2:30, right? But like all these other exterior distractions, present
Yeah.
or not currently, go away. So the Indian Castle makes that a lot easier. And hardcore modes maybe even more so, but it's just more of the same goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this time when you're coming, we are going to be in a new venue, which is kind
Mm,
of cool. You'll get to be one of the first dungeon masters to try out a new space. It's going to be a little
very
bit different in
excited.
that yeah, it's exciting. It's also a medieval castle that has been converted into a hotel. It's in Darlington, which is just about an hour south of where our current castle is. And it's going to be a little bit smaller. So it's going to be really, really cozy. It's
Cool.
6 tables instead of 10 to 12, which is what we tend to do at our bigger location. So it's going to be a nice sort of intimate event
Cool.
in a castle this year. So
I
that's
mean,
going to be
I'll
neat.
be running around reading every plaque and tracking down every historically significant anything around there immediately. So I'm always very excited to go to new
Find
new
out a little bit
historical
about it.
locations. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I know that I was thinking just before this interview that I am dubbing you Thor. I can't talk about it, Knai, because you always have things that you can't talk about. But are there things you can tell us that you're doing at the moment that you can actually talk about? Because I know there are many things you can't.
Here's the problem. Like I'm not sure. Some of these new things I haven't signed NDAs for yet, but the second I open my mouth and say anything, I'll get an NDA in the email the next, like, within the hour, being like, "Oh, by the way," and I'll be like,
Don't
"Oop."
say what you just said.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So no, I've stepped in it several times with this before, where like Netflix gets involved and like calling my reps and be like, have him take that down, and it's not even like what I would consider a spoiler or an NDA anything, but it's just like something adjacent to thing. So
Mhm.
Netflix calls and like Thor needs to take that down. Anyway, so I'm yeah, I can't really talk about it, and I find social media as an actor to be a little hard. Yeah,
Right.
because like I don't necessarily want to talk about myself. That's to me not that interesting. It's really fun to talk about the stuff that I do, and I can never do it until
Till it's
I
already done.
there's so much of the process of the thing happens before it's ever on TV or on in the theaters, and I can only, go hard right as it's been announced and it's, everyone
And
already
your
knows what's going
involvement
on.
is generally done by then.
It's done
Yeah.
by then, yeah, yeah. So I mean,
So
there's
where can
several
people
things. Yeah.
what things can people know about? Like, well, I mean, last time we mentioned about the Rebel Moon thing that is live that you are part of.
Yeah.
What other things are out there at the moment that you are part of?
Well, if you want to see me specifically, you could watch DC Legends of Tomorrow, The Outpost, Bones. Jesus. Oh my God, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. But all that, feel like you have to buy that now. It was taken off streaming services. The musical one about West Covina. It's super funny. Mind you, I am not a large part of either of these things. I'm just in them at certain points, in and out. Rain is a fun one that I loved. There will be another series this year. Again, so NDA that I can't even be on my resume. The
All
thing
right.
that
Well, we can just know. You
yeah,
can
yeah,
just take it from me. Thor does cool things and is doing cool things, and you can just trust me on
I
that. Yeah.
I just booked a movie with a director who is the same director who did Twilight and 13 and Lords of Dogtown. So I can say that much. She's really.
Okay.
I'm excited to work with her. So that'll be fun.
Very cool.
Another
Very cool.
smallish part, but I that doesn't no there's no small parts,
No small
So
parts,
no small
right?
parts.
That's what we say. Yeah,
So I'm very
absolutely.
excited. Yeah, that'll be
Yeah,
a lot of
but
fun.
we're excited. It's very exciting that you're coming and bringing this campaign. And I was even thinking, you ran this campaign at the last castle twice, but people couldn't sign up for it unless they were joining hardcore mode, which isn't necessarily for not everybody
Right,
was to join hardcore mode. So this really is the first time that people are able to sign up for this campaign, and the castle's almost full. So
right,
might
right.
go again, and this is a chance to play this campaign for the first time
S-
for people if they want to join that.
Some of my best DM work yet, just in case that's
Aw.
any relevance to anyone. You have no frame of reference, just trust me. Yeah,
Just better than another thing you know nothing about.
yeah, exactly.
So great. So great. Well, we're really looking forward to having you there, Thor, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to ask you to take us out with an invitation to join you in July at the castle for this campaign with you at D&D the Castle.
All right. Well, if you want to live in the fjords of northern Europe and the fantasy and myths of the Norse and maybe The Witcher, and add a little bit of spice of historical fiction, then you should come join me at D&D Castle this summer. At what's the castle?
It is called Walworth Castle,
At
and
Walworth Castle.
it's July 13th to 17th,
July
2025.
13th to 17th, 2025.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Thor, and we'll see you at the castle.
Yay. Have a good one.
Take care.